Good morning. It is Friday, April 26th. My Second Universe Writer's Update. Talking about a little visualizing the opening scene tip, timeline update for the virtual tabletop game session, and a little story time, pulling in some story notes from a decade plus gaming session. So, writing tip. I was in bed, borderline lucid dreaming, and thinking about my book. Always thinking about my book. Not always, but often. Trying to make sense of why it's not making sense. What about it needs to change to hook? Less complicated. What are my weaknesses? Too much is going on. Too many characters. It's the second book in the series, but it's got to feel like something that a reader can just pick up and hop right in. And I'm visualizing. I'm seeing it like a movie. How does it start? And I realized something. That my intro is too impersonal. It doesn't get the reader into the point of view. Doesn't get you connected and attached to the main character well enough. So I went back and I rewrote it, added a few paragraphs, made the character a little appealing right at the start, because she's very unappealing. Even in the first chapter, she does unappealing things. It's her character art, her journey, her hero journey. She begins fairly unappealing, a selfish person, but she does a few marginally unselfish things that I added. Little things, little loosening the reins of some horses that are uncomfortable, maybe putting a blanket on a boy who's cold, just a couple small things, easing readers in. It's fantasy, right? My book. I'm working uphill in the sense that it is a foreign, exotic setting. And if I have a complicated story with complicated relationships and that setting, it's overwhelming. I need to ease people in, establish the setting, take my time. So I think I did well with the opening scene maybe. But I do need to work on the first chapter. And dare I split it to 2 chapters? I don't know. But I do need to rethink of the first chapter through the lens of visualizing as a movie someone immersing themselves through the eyes of the main character, I think. Or an experience. Maybe a movie's not quite right, but really experiencing it through her eyes. Kind of zooming in and looking around. What does she see? What's going on? The crackling of the fire. What the forest looks like. The covered wagon. The family, sick, that took her in. And the little brownie, the little fey man that had poisoned them, trying to get to her. And she has tied to a stick. And she's roasting him, cooking him, turning him over the fire, torturing him until he tells her what she wants, until he agrees to help her because she needs help. She has a burden that she thought was impossible. She has a burden. Anyway, yeah. So it's never perfect, but it's always, I think, good going over that first chapter again and again and again. It's never perfect, but make it as close as you can. From get feedback from as many people as you can. Fresh eyes. That's where Scribophile comes in. All those fresh eyes looking at that first scene. It's a great thing. Game session. I have a mess of a timeline. I've been lax in keeping up, like, characters. This is the virtual tabletop role playing game on Roll20, based in the same fantasy setting as my books. And I've got my brother and friends, real life, and then people I only know through the internet playing, a bunch of them. And they've been doing a lot of traveling around. So weeks are going by, and I'm losing track of time, my schedule, my careful schedule that I had arranged of events. So I need to clean that up and make it clear to everybody. Now that they've zoomed out and they have a good, nice, big area map, starting to plot things on a kingdom scale, a little empire building. So I need to work on that. As I think for games that are going on for multiple years, you got to think in these terms, calendars, and setting things in motion. The players setting things in motion themselves as they start to take some of these reins of the game master away from me, as they plot things out. And then you're still there. You're still the editor. It's more of like an editor role for the storytelling, maybe. Yeah, it's fun. They are helping me. I've already did something in game which I'm thinking to incorporate into my book in an edit. It was like, oh yeah, that really makes sense. I should incorporate it. So it is a boon. It is a muse, and I'm also looking at maybe doing some kind of live stream. My son really wants to do live streaming, so I'm exploring it. It is depressing as hell. No offense to live streamers. I know I'm here. I am recording a YouTube video, but when I hear how hard a lot of these people work, like 13-hour streams, and they're just, and I don't know, there's something about it's a little off. But I'm exploring it. I'm learning, and I want to understand it before I allow my son to dive in. I know there's going to be no real stopping it. I mean, I just educate, like ride the wave. Can't stop the wave. Learn to surf. So story time. The scar. So slipping back centuries in my setting to a time when an alliance of nations versus an empire, a war centuries long, magic and technology bashing together, pushing the limits, pushing the edges of where gods dare to tread, linking magics across 1,000 yules, tens of thousands sharing one casting, one goal, arming a weapon and setting it in motion. But these things are beyond the capacity of the universe. These things that tread on the divine make reality shudder and tear. And so it was, centuries ago, that the land was stripped of everything organic and pressed into another universe, a place with different universal laws, a place of death and permanence. Every man, woman, child, beast, plant, bug, everything stripped from the surface. Only the deepest of worms, only seeds buried under rock, and nothing else survived. A huge swath of land, the scar. It was catastrophic, and it stopped the war. The ring of what remained of the alliance of nations that had thought to use this weapon to break the empire that had so hurt and wounded their pride. The Empire saw this devastation and did not see something worth taking. It was sobering, and they backed away, and they forgot about that border. And the scar was twisted by the horror, by the lacking, by the haunting, missing things, by the trees that weren't there, but the memory lingered. Seeds would blow in, people, nomads would come through this plateau of nothing. A sparse, stark scar, a bleak land, and they would settle and they would roam and they would raise herds. They would not farm. The land did not like farming, but some grasses grew and there was some recovery, yet the nights were always haunted. There was the other, the others, at the edge of sleep, at the edge between life and death. Anyone who died in the bleak lands, in the scar, could see them, hungry, hungry for the warmth of their recent memories. The scar. I'm incorporating it into the setting, an old campaign brought again into the light. See you next week.